Do not look at the supercars lining the driveway of a mansion that costs more than most people will earn in 10 lifetimes. Do not look at the $20 million villa with its marble floors, infinity pools, and golden trophies catching the Mediterranean sun. Those things are not the story. They are merely the debris of success, the decorative casing of a life lived at the extreme. If you want to understand the man, you have to look past the velvet ropes and the flashing cameras. You have to look into his eyes at 2 a.m. Look at those eyes, bloodshot, strained under the harsh, clinical glow of a private gym, while the rest of the world is paralyzed in sleep. There is no crowd here. There are no cameras to capture the brand. There is only the rhythmic, agonizing sound of breath meeting iron. At this hour, Cristiano Ronaldo is not a global icon. He is a debtor. He is paying back a debt to his own greatness, a debt that is collected every single night in the form of sweat, lactic acid, and isolation. The world loves the result, but it is terrified of the process. We see the 90-minute goal and call it magic. We see the physical perfection and call it luck or genetics. But genetics didn't drag him out of bed at midnight after a cross-continental flight. Luck didn't perform heart surgery on a 15-year-old boy and then tell him to run until his lungs burned. Those are choices. And those choices lead to a singular, brutal truth that most people spent their entire lives trying to ignore. Success is not a gift. It is a life sentence that he voluntarily signed. When we speak of a gift, we imply something given freely, something that requires only a thank you. But greatness is never free. It is a predatory creditor. For every Ballon d'Or on his shelf, there is 1,000 hours of loneliness. For every goal celebrated by millions, there are 10,000 repetitions performed in silence. While his peers were celebrating victories with champagne and late-night parties, Ronaldo was negotiating with his own fatigue. He was paying the debt, while others were spending their talent like it would never run out. This is the royal scar of the 4%. The 96% of the world lives for the weekend, for the comfort of the enough, for the safety of the crowd. They look at a man like Ronaldo and call him arrogant or obsessed. But obsessed is just a word the lazy use to describe the dedicated. They call him selfish because they cannot fathom a level of focus so intense that it filters out everything that doesn't lead to the summit. The truth is, success at this level is a prison of one's own making. It is a life sentence because once you reach the top, the cost of staying there increases every day. The mountain gets steeper, the air gets thinner, and the critics get louder. Most people, if given the keys to that $20 million villa tomorrow, would stop working. They would satisfy their hunger and fall asleep. But Ronaldo's hunger is pathological. It is a hunger that isn't fed by trophies. It is fed by the struggle itself. Think about that 15-year-old boy in Madeira, his heart beating out of rhythm, facing a surgery that could have ended his dream before it began. He didn't sign up for fame. He signed up for the fight. He signed up for the right to push his body until it broke, and then rebuild it stronger. He signed up for the life sentence of never being satisfied. So the next time you see him standing on that pitch, draped in glory, remember the 2 a.m. gym sessions. Remember that the va-ba, the shell of wealth, is light, but the burden of being the best is heavy. Success is a contract written in blood and sweat. Most people want the prize, but they flee from the price. Cristiano Ronaldo didn't just pay the price, he bought the whole factory. The question isn't whether you have his talent. The question is, are you willing to sign your own sentence? Are you willing to stay awake while the world sleeps? paying back the debt to the person you were meant to become. Because greatness isn't something you achieve, it's something you endure. Stop, or you will die. Those were the words of the doctors in 2000, looking at a 15-year-old boy whose heart was racing out of rhythm with his body. To the medical world, it was a diagnosis, a malfunction of the biological pump that sustains life. But to Cristiano Ronaldo, life was never about the mere act of breathing. For him, breathing was a byproduct of running. If he couldn't step onto that pitch, if he couldn't feel the grass beneath his boots and the wind against his face, he was already a ghost. "If I cannot run, I am already dead," he replied. It wasn't the defiance of a stubborn child. It was the clarity of a soul that had already identified its singular purpose. Heart surgery at 15 is usually framed as a tragedy, a dark cloud over a young life. But in the grand architecture of greatness, it wasn't a tragedy. It was a feptu, a crucible. It was the moment the universe asked him, "How much do you actually want this?" Most people use their heart to stay alive. Ronaldo needed his heart to fuel a legacy. He didn't need a healthy heart in the conventional medical sense. He needed an eternal engine. A conventional heart is designed to survive. An engine is designed to perform. By undergoing that risky procedure and returning to the training ground just days later, Ronaldo effectively replaced his biological heart with a mechanical obsession. From that day forward, his chest didn't house an organ, it housed a furnace. Every beat was no longer a sign of life, but a stroke of a piston, driving him toward a destination that didn't exist for others. The tragedy isn't having a racing heart. The tragedy is having a heart that beats for nothing. Think about the sheer audacity of that moment. At 15, most of us are trying to fit in, trying to find our place in the social hierarchy of a classroom. Ronaldo was on an operating table, negotiating with death so he could return to a life of grueling labor. This surgery was the ultimate system upgrade. It removed the physical limitation of his body and replaced it with an unbreakable psychological contract. When we look at his career, the 5 Champions League trophies, the 800-plus goals, the relentless sprints in the 91st minute, we aren't looking at athletic talent. We are looking at the output of that eternal engine. A normal heart gets tired. A normal heart seeks rest after a decade of elite competition. But an engine built on the FEP2 of 2000 does not know how to stop. It only knows how to consume more fuel, more pain, more criticism, more doubt. You see him standing over a free kick, his legs wide, his breath deep and controlled. In that silence, you can almost hear the engine idling. The doctors warned him that his heart was too fast, but they didn't realize that it had to be fast to keep up with his mind. He was a Ferrari trapped in a bicycle frame. And that surgery was the moment the frame was finally reinforced. This is the lesson for the 96% who settle for healthy enough or good enough. We spend our lives protecting our hearts, avoiding stress, fleeing from the things that make our pulse quicken with fear. Ronaldo did the opposite. He ran directly toward the thing that could kill him, because it was the only thing that made him feel alive. He didn't just survive heart surgery. He used it to kill the boy he was and birth the machine he became. He traded the fragile heart of a Madeiran dreamer for the cold, invincible engine of a global conqueror. And that is why, 25 years later, while his contemporaries have long since retired to their couches and their memories, the engine is still humming. It doesn't matter if it's Manchester, Madrid, Turin, or Riyadh. The location changes, but the engine remains the gum. Because when you've already faced the end and told it no, every heartbeat after that isn't a gift, it's an acquisition. He isn't playing for glory anymore. He is playing because the engine doesn't know any other way to exist. It is eternal, not because it will never stop, but because it refuses to stop while there is still a single road left to conquer. You saw him return to the pitch just days after the world learned of the death of his newborn son. You saw him stand there, chin up, chest out, ready to battle under the stadium lights. And you called it professionalism. You thought it was a display of cold, elite work ethic. You were wrong. It wasn't professionalism. It was salvation. In the sterilized world of the 96%, pain is something to be avoided, a reason to stop, a signal to retreat into the shadows and wait for the wounds to heal. But in the brutal, uncompromising world of the 4%, pain is not a barrier. It is Nian Liu, pure, high-octane propellant. For a man like Cristiano Ronaldo, the football pitch is not just a workplace, it is a sanctuary. It is the only place on earth where the chaotic agony of the soul can be converted into the rhythmic precision of action. Every tear that fell in the silence of his home, away from the prying eyes of the paparazzi, did not simply evaporate. In the crucible of his discipline, those tears underwent a metamorphosis. Each one hit the grass of the training ground, and through the sheer pressure of his will, fossilized into diamonds on his crown. To understand this, you must understand the alchemy of the elite. When tragedy strikes the average person, it paralyzes. It becomes a weight that drags them to the bottom of the ocean. But for the 4%, tragedy is a forge. They do not ask, "Why did this happen to me?" They ask, "How can I use this to become unreachable?" Ronaldo didn't play despite the pain. He played with it. He wore his grief like a suit of invisible armor. When he ran, he wasn't just running toward a goal. He was running away from the suffocating gravity of despair. The world of the 4% is a lonely one because it requires a terrifying level of emotional transmutation. Most people want to be comforted in their grief. Ronaldo wanted to be challenged. He knew that if he allowed the sorrow to settle, it would rust his eternal engine. So he took that raw, jagged emotion and sharpened it into a blade. Think about the courage it takes to be the great Ronaldo when you are secretly Cristiano the grieving father. Every time the crowd chanted his name, it was a reminder of what he had achieved, but also a reminder of what he had to uphold. He didn't have the luxury of breaking down because he had signed a contract with destiny. He understood that his life was no longer his own. It belonged to the millions who looked at him as a symbol of human limitlessness. This is the royal scar in its most literal sense. It is the ability to take the deepest loss a human being can endure, the loss of a child, and turn it into a reason to fight harder. It is the realization that if he could survive this, no defender, no stadium, no rival, and no injury could ever break him again. He became anti-fragile. Like a bone that grows back stronger at the point of the fracture, Ronaldo's spirit became denser, harder, and more impenetrable at the very sight of his heartbreak. Those diamonds on his crown aren't there for decoration. They are there to remind us that greatness is a tax paid in blood and sorrow. The 96% look at his life and envy the diamonds, the fame, the money, the perfection. But they refuse to touch the tears that created them. They want the crown without the thorns. Ronaldo teaches us that the highest form of human existence is not the absence of pain, but the mastery of it. It is the ability to stand in the center of a stadium with 80,000 people screaming your name while your heart is breaking in two, and still have the clarity to deliver a masterclass. That isn't sport. That is a spiritual triumph. So, when you see him score, When you see him celebrate with that iconic roar, look closer. Look beyond the jersey. You are looking at a man who has mastered the art of turning leaden grief into golden glory. He is the living proof that no matter how dark the night, no matter how deep the loss, you can always choose to lace up your boots, walk into the light, and turn your tears into the very stones that pave your path to immortality. Out there, in the vast, gray expanse of mediocrity, the 96% are watching. They sit in the safety of their living rooms, clutching their excuses like shields, and they call him a madman. They whisper that he is selfish, arrogant, or obsessed. But make no mistake, those labels are not observations of his character. They are confessions of their own inadequacy. The 96% do not hate Cristiano Ronaldo because of his ego. They hate him because he is a mirror. When they look at a man who treats his body like a temple and his career like a holy war, they are forced to see the dust on their own dreams. When they see his 2 a.m. gym sessions, they are reminded of the alarms they snoozed and the promises they broke to themselves. They need to call him crazy, because if he is sane, then they are lazy. If he is human, then they have no excuse. It is a fundamental law of human nature. The crowd will always try to pull the climber back down to the plateau. They will tell you that balance is the key to life. They will tell you that it's just a game. They will tell you to relax, you've done enough. But Ronaldo knows that enough is the poison that kills greatness. He knows that the 96% use the word balance as a euphemism for surrender. They want him to be normal, so they can feel better about being average. This is the most terrifying aspect of the elite. Light does not just guide, it reveals. Ronaldo's relentless brilliance acts as a high-powered searchlight, cutting through the fog of, "I couldn't do it," or "It was too hard." When he performs at 39 years old with the hunger of a teenager, he exposes the darkness of the 96%, the darkness of wasted potential, the darkness of what if, and the darkness of a life spent choosing the path of least resistance. His light reveals that their darkness isn't a lack of opportunity, it is a lack of will. Think about the psychology of the critic. A critic is someone who watches a battle from the sidelines and then judges the way the warrior bleeds. The 96% are professional critics of the 4%. They attack his selfishness on the pitch because they cannot understand a soul that is so committed to a mission that it has no room for the trivialities of social pleasing. In the world of the 4%, being selfish with your time and energy is the only way to be selfless with your legacy. Ronaldo didn't become a legend by asking for permission or by trying to be liked. He understood early on that if you want to be part of the 4%, you must be willing to be the villain in the story of the 96%. You must be willing to be mocked, misunderstood, and maligned. Why? Because your existence is a permanent insult to their comfort. Every record he breaks is a slap in the face to the impossible. Every trophy he lifts is a rejection of the reasonable. This is the final test for anyone who dares to dream. Can you handle the resentment of the crowd? Can you stand in the blinding light of your own potential, knowing that it will cast a long, ugly shadow over those who stayed behind? The 96% will never cheer for your obsession until it produces a result they can consume. Until then, they will call you maniacal. Do not let their darkness dim your light. Do not let their excuses, become your reality. The 96% aren't looking for a hero to follow. They're looking for a hero to fail, so they can say, "See, I told you it wasn't worth the effort." Cristiano Ronaldo is the ultimate answer to that cowardice. He is the proof that you can be the most hated man in the stadium and still be the most powerful person on the field. He is the proof that light doesn't apologize for being bright. So, let them talk. Let them judge. Let them hide in their shadows. While they are busy finding new ways to justify their laziness, the man they call mad is already back in the gym, back on the pitch, back in the furnace. He isn't playing for their approval. He is playing for his immortality. And in the end, the light always wins. Not because it is kind, but because it is true. The world has spent decades obsessing over Cristiano Ronaldo's talent. They analyze his footwork, his vertical leap, and his biological age as if they were looking for a secret formula in a lab. But here is the cold, hard truth that most people are too afraid to admit. You do not need his talent. You don't need his genetics, his bank account, or his fame to change the trajectory of your life. But you do need his brutality. When I say brutality, I am not talking about violence toward others. I am talking about a relentless, unforgiving, and surgical banfa, a self-destruction of the ego. To become the man the world sees today, Ronaldo had to systematically destroy the boy who wanted to quit. He had to be brutal with his own desires. He had to kill the part of himself that craved comfort, the part that wanted to sleep in, and the part that sought the approval of ordinary people. You see, the 96% fail not because they lack potential, but because they are too kind to their own weaknesses. They negotiate with their laziness. They have a civil war in their minds every morning and let the coward win. Ronaldo does not negotiate. He dictates. He is a tyrant to his own body. He treats his physical self like a slave to his ambition. This brutality is the only bridge between a dream and a reality. If you are not willing to be cruel to your current self, you will never meet your future self. Now look at the clock. In a few moments, this video will end. The screen will go black, and the silence of your room will return. In that split second of stillness, you will face the most important choice of your existence. You have two paths, and there is no middle ground. You can close this tab, put your phone down, and walk back into the gray fog of the 96%. You can return to being a bongma, a ghost in the crowd. You can continue to exist in that lukewarm space where dreams go to die, where you talk about one day, while today slips through your fingers. You can be the person who watches greatness on a screen, but never feels it in their blood. You will be safe, you will be comfortable, and you will be forgotten. Or you can decide that today is day one. You can pick up the pen and begin writing the first chapter of your legacy. Not a legacy of fame, but a legacy of character. A legacy of a human being who finally stopped lying to themselves. Writing that first chapter doesn't require a stadium or a contract. It requires a decision. It starts with the thing you've been avoiding, the gym session you skipped, the book you haven't opened, the difficult conversation you've been running from. The world is full of ghosts who are waiting for the right time. They are waiting for a sign, for more money, for more talent. But here is the ultimate paradox of life. Greatness is waiting, but it will not wait for the hesitant. Greatness is a permanent resident of the present moment. It is waiting for you right now, but it has no patience for your excuses. It is like a train that never stops. You either jump on while it's moving and risk the fall, or you stand on the platform forever. Every second you spend preparing is a second you spend dying. The universe does not reward the ready, it rewards the bold. Ronaldo didn't wait to be ready to leave Madeira. He didn't wait to be ready to take the number 7 jersey at Manchester United. He jumped. He bled. He failed. And in that failure, he found the brutality to get back up. So, ask yourself, who are you when the lights go out? Are you the person who is inspired for 10 minutes, or the person who is disciplined for 10 years? Inspiration is a guest. Discipline is a tenant. The ink is in your hand. The page is blank. The eternal engine is idling, waiting for you to engage the gear. Don't look at the 96% for direction. They are lost. Don't look at the supercars. They are just metal. Look inward. Find that spark of brutality. Find that version of yourself that is tired of being a ghost. The video is ending. The silence is coming. Will you haunt the world, or will you change it? The first chapter starts now.